as we say, it is not necessarily the quantity of the audience, it is the quality of the audience that counts. So we go from there. First of all, Stefan, many thanks for inviting me here again. Not the first time in Croatia, always a pleasure. And first time for me in Opatija. It's been fantastic so far. So now it's time for work. I'm talking about health-enhancing physical activity, and Stefan provided me a very narrow focused topic, as you can see here, so I try to cover that to the best of my capacity. Summer was very good in Finland, exceptionally good. This is from my little summer cottage. That's where I started to work for you, Stefan. No, this is going to be the outcome of all the work there. These are the themes that I cover. Some historical notes first. What do we know about HEPA? I cover some of the most recent recommendations, because they are not only recommendations what people should do, they have a broader significance. Then I cover policy development, some recent policy developments. And here I had to be careful, because Charlie Foster is going to talk about promotion, and policy development is certainly part of the promotion. So let's see where we overlap or don't overlap. And then finally something about relevant networking in the HEPA area. My very personal and narrow historical notes consider two key persons that I think that are really have been the fathers, the pioneers for HEPA development. Jerry Morris, I'm quite sure all of you know his name. Some of you knew him personally. He lived 99.5 years. Missed the 100 years post, but was very active to the very end of his life. And his one of his contribution to the HEPA research, of course, is the early study from the 1950s, where he compared the death rate of London double bus drivers and conductors with the assumption, with the condition that the drivers sit all day long and the conductors step up and down the bus to collect the money, and other things being equal, which he controlled, he noticed that the death rate of the drivers was double of that of the conductors. Really fantastic study. Brilliant design, real-life design. So these kind of studies we still should be able to conduct. Another individual greatly contributing to the area of HEPA research is Ralph Paffenbarger. Very enduring man, both physically and mentally. He ran 150 marathons. In one occasion, he ran the marathon in London, took the flight to Boston, and next day ran the Boston Marathon. Really, and kept that habit to very late years. And his main contribution to the HEPA research is the Harvard alumni study, where he collected the lifestyle characteristics of the members of the alumni when they graduated, and then he followed them for years and then looked at the numbers of deaths in those who were active and those who were inactive. And again, found a dramatic difference between the two death rates, the active being having much lower death rate as the inactive. Classical studies, and they were followed by a number of similar epidemiological studies, and from these studies the pattern of the dose response of physical activity and mortality or morbidity began to appear. It is a curvilinear pattern, and it still stands pretty much like these earlier epidemiological studies demonstrated. And the accumulation of evidence from their studies, from other studies, led to the serious consideration of physical activity as health-enhancing behavior. And one of the landmarks in this area is the 1995 physical activity recommendations from the Center for Disease Control and American College of Sports Medicine, the half an hour most days of the week recommendation. This was a very radical recommendation. This introduced the moderate intensity concept, allowing for the possibility of people to include moderate intensity walking, cycling, domestic work in their daily routine, and thus promote their health and life. Another aspect of this recommendation is the accumulation aspect, meaning that the half an hour daily dose can be broken into shorter bouts, 10 minutes bouts, and repeat that 3 times, and you get the same benefits as when doing it in one bout. Another revolutionary concept in the HEPA area. And these recommendations led quickly to policy developments, policy statements in the United States. One being the report of the Surgeon General, so high profile health authority in the United States, covering all aspects of health and health sciences. And for the first time, physical activity recommendations came from this office, and they were based on the research that led to the recommendations and promoted physical activity very powerfully for the United States population. And this is our understanding, as seen here, what this new concept of HEPA means, and as shown here, the benefits of physical activity accrue very rapidly when you move from no activity or very little activity to some activity. And then they grow before getting tapering off when you approach very strenuous activity, and also the risks stay very low in this area. So from the population perspective, this is extremely inviting to adapt this concept, and the evidence supports this kind of interpretation. So what do we know currently about the health benefits of physical activity? Very briefly, the latest very comprehensive review comes from the Guidelines Advisory Committee for the Department of Health in the United States from 2008. It's still a landmark document here, and they have systematically looked at the literature, systematically looked at the benefits in children, in adolescents, in older adults, and the evidence is graded as being strong, moderate, or weak, according to the very stringent criteria of evidence assessment. And the list of benefits based on strong evidence is impressive here for children and adolescents, even more so for adults and older adults. So when you go down to moderate evidence, you cover really the most aspects of the most prevalent health outcomes in the population. Next question, if physical activity and when physical activity is so beneficial for health, how much and what kind of activity is good to be recommended to people? This was the 1995 recommendation, and during the next 10 or a few more years, tremendous amount of new evidence was documented, and the recommendations were updated. The 1995 recommendations were updated in 2007, first by two professional organizations, American College of Sports Medicine and American Heart Association. And now new aspects, several new aspects came into the recommendations. One being that not only moderate intensity activity is recommended, but also vigorous intensity activity is recommended. A little less of vigorous per week is sufficient for health benefits, similar health benefits as the moderate intensity activity, or you can combine these two. So broader understanding of the type of activity that is beneficial, and they also recommend muscle strengthening activities for the best health benefits. This is for adults. They also had recommendations for older adults, basically the same as these, but considering the health and functional limitations of the individuals to adjust these recommendations for any given particular situation. 1 year later then came the official, the Department of Health guidelines. They are much the same as the 2007 guidelines, and it's no wonder because many of the same people were designing them. But they took a little bit different form. These are the key guidelines that they listed: avoid inactivity, substantial health benefits from moderate amount of activity, aerobic activity. You increase the benefits when you increase the quantity of the activity, and also muscle strengthening activities are important. And now, instead of certain frequency of activity per week, now they talk about total amount a week. And this is a major difference between the 2007-2008 recommendations. 150 minutes moderate intensity or 75 minutes vigorous intensity per week, or the combination, equivalent combination of the two. This has been an interesting decision that they went to the total weekly activity. Will be interesting what will happen in the near future when we get some more experience data showing whether the total weekly recommendation works better or worse than the frequency per week recommendation. One more additional aspect in these 2008 recommendations is that they clearly state, based on evidence, that vigorous intensity activity provides more benefits than the moderate intensity activity. And to me, having worked with the sports community recently, this is really important invitation for the sports community to step more seriously into the health promotion area. Sports community has been rather ignorant about the health benefits. They only say in their high-level statements that sport is healthy, but that's it. They really forget it on the way down to the grassroots activities. And now there are activities in initiating serious health-promoting sporting activities. It will be a long way, but I personally feel that there's a tremendous potential in this area. And as Sigmund Låland emphasized in his presentation in the opening ceremony, that sports community should also recognize and take the social responsibility. And I think that considering health and the health potential of sport, the health promotion through sports, the sports community could really gain the social responsibility importantly. The latest recommendations, international recommendations, are those from WHO. They are again almost word to word similar to the 2008 recommendations for the Americans. Little differences, but they are for adults, older adults, and for children and adolescents. So now, having all this evidence analyzed, synthesized, and having provided the recommendations, I think that we have a very strong base to jump on and start the promotion. In Europe, the European countries have been a little slower in presenting country-wise recommendations. These are the ones that have been published. To my knowledge, Switzerland was very early here in 1999. Their recommendation, which took the form of a physical activity pyramid. UK provided their at least 5-a-week recommendation based on the 1995 recommendations. They also included recommendations for children and adolescents, elderly people. Yes, it was there. They have been working hard, updating their recommendations. I still haven't heard the outcome. Still nothing out. They are out.
Yes, a few months ago.
Okay, so
we are late.
Old-fashioned here, you know. Okay, so we correct this. UK is up to date. In Finland, we have the physical activity pie, first 2005, which was much of the 1995 recommendation style, and now recently it was updated, and again very much reflecting the new evidence similar to the 2008 recommendations. Austria did their recommendations last year. Sweden is in the process of doing theirs. I haven't seen the outcome yet. So also the European countries are getting active here. This is the Finnish physical activity pie. I don't go into details, but the idea is that take a bite of the pie, that's good for you. Take more, it's better for you. Take the whole pie, it's best for you. And why I like to talk about the recommendations is that, as I mentioned already, they are more than just guidelines for people. As the responsible person behind the 2008 US recommendations, Richard Troiano, summarized the significance of recommendations last year this way. Recommendations justify the expenditure of public funds for promotion and programming. So it is a statement of evidence that you can use in justifying funding for the promotion of physical activity. Recommendations define the benefits to be expected by various population groups and the necessary dose of activity. So this is the initial, the key significance of the recommendations, but in addition to that, the others are important as well. United message and behavior targets. And this, to me, is also extremely important. You get the metrics for following the population behavior. And why that is important? Because for the policy development and for the political support, you need to demonstrate what is happening in the population. And you need to demonstrate the scope of the promotional measures in order to improve the situation. And then also you can support the economic arguments when you have the stated health benefits and the recommended dose responses. So the recommendations are concise, important documents that you can use for many purposes. And then a little bit of the promotion. And I'm very sensitive here because Charlie will cover the promotional issues later on. I'm maybe not up to date here, so I don't even take the risk of trying to do that. What has been emphasized recently in many promotional measures is the multidisciplinarity, in that there are many not only settings, but many avenues that you can use in promoting physical activity. Health education, health promotion, transport, environment, geography, social marketing. So a variety of possibilities are available to promote this message. Some of the political policy initiatives are, to me, very important and guide the way how countries should follow up in this area. Of course, the 2004 global strategy on diet and physical activity from World Health Organization is still an important landmark as a policy document. It has become even more clear that physical activity should be included also in the program. When you see the rating of physical inactivity as causes of death globally. It is the fourth leading cause of death among these risk factors that are included here. Fourth leading cause of death. We have here, as you can see, high blood pressure, tobacco use, high blood glucose, and physical inactivity is next, right there on top of the list. And then come the other risk factors. So this is serious. This is something that we can stand behind and start actions. And in fact, in another follow-up action plan from World Health Organization for the prevention and control of non-communicable diseases, physical inactivity is in there. It's still a little bit in the periphery, but it is clearly in their action plan to do something about the non-communicable disease situation. European World Health Organization has been very active in promoting physical activity. Several documents have come, particularly from the Rome office. Unfortunately, the Rome office will be closed, as I understand, so let's hope that this doesn't delete the physical activity from their agenda. In addition to, the WHO Euro initiatives here have been linked to transport in many occasions, meaning walking and cycling for transport, and emphasizing that this is one area where you can have a tremendous impact on population activity. If you improve the infrastructure, urban infrastructure in particular, to allow safe and enjoyable cycling and walking daily, this will have a tremendous impact on population activity level. European Commission has also been active. Their health sector was kind of disappointing. They had their white paper on nutrition and physical activity, but it ended up to be mostly nutrition, not much physical activity, and they more or less delegated this work to the platform on diet and physical activity. It's an independent body of experts, and the food industry more or less took over this platform, and physical activity was really made a peripheral substance there, and that has been the DG Sanko's contribution. But surprisingly, the sports office of the Directorate of Culture took physical activity very strongly in their white paper, and as you know, the white papers are strong guidelines for the EU policies. They stick to those when they are once published. The white paper on sport put physical activity on top of their list of importance, and they say they make HEPA as the cornerstone of sports activities of the European Union. Very strong statement. There's been a little bit of backlash now in the recent couple of years in that maybe they take it a little bit back, but it's still there. And again, having seen the recommendations and the possibility to promote also vigorous activity, most sports are vigorous in nature, so there are these two justifications to really start to promote sport for public health. How to promote physical activity? Okay, again, I don't touch this to any details. This is the local Croatian team behind Stefan. A couple of these are here. They are the future of Croatia in HEPA development. We are expecting a lot from him. How have these high-level policy statements come down to national level? I don't have a very recent data, but this is from 2009, I think, a publication by the HEPA Europe network. They looked across Europe national policy documents where physical activity was included. They found, 49 documents from 24 countries. Health promotion being the most prevalent, having included physical activity in the policy statements. Transport also very active. Transport has recognized walking, cycling as part of transportation important. 7 in sport and 1 in environment. I'm sure that the picture today is greatly increased, but no data at the moment to my knowledge. Something about networking, and this is the map of networking, international, regional, local. And the HEPA community has begun to do networking at all levels. And there are specialized, dedicated organizations in the HEPA area. Research organizations, International Society for Physical Activity and Health, this is the American origin, but is dedicated to HEPA, health enhancing physical activity, and is growing rapidly. Oh, sorry.
Because of the translation.
Yeah, right. Sorry. Agita Mundo is more policy-oriented global network. And then there are specialized network like the one on international physical activity and environmental issues. Regional level, we have very active networks both in Europe and in America, and I particularly emphasize the HEPA Europe, the European Network for the Promotion of Health Enhancing Physical Activity, very active, very pleasant new young group of network of institutions and individuals. Here you can see the homepage of HEPA Europe. Please visit that to learn more about it. The network has held annual meetings from 2006 when it was established, and the next one is in Amsterdam this coming October. A little late to register, but consider, and then look forward to the next year's conference. Very pleasant, positive, informal, casual group of people, 200, 300 people presenting both research and practical experiences and examples. So this is an overview of what has happened in the 90s and in the first decade of 2000. We have documented strong evidence base. We had 2 consensus Congress proceedings preceding the recommendations from 1995. There was also a special dose response symposium where in the meantime research findings were summarized. And of course I should include here then the 2008 advisory committee report, which collected and analyzed updated research evidence again. We have recommendations, and as I explained, they have a broader significance as just telling what to do from the 1990s, and now the later recommendations that are highly evidence-based. Policy development started actually already in the United States earlier, but globally by World Health Organization and then by EU in the first decade of 2000. And then we have the networking. Actually, the networking in Europe started already in 1996. There was a European Commission project, European HEPA network, already called like that. UKK Institute was a lead institute. Ilkka Vuori was the leader of this network. But when the funding ended, then formally the network was closed. But there remained obvious need for more formal networking than just open networking, and that's when the new HEPA Europe network was started in 2005, 6, either one. And Brian Martin from Switzerland was a key person in getting the new network started and organized. He was the first president. We have a lot to do still. This is a European picture in the survey question: how let me see.
How
often do you do exercise or play sport? How often do you do exercise or play sport? The never answers. I never exercise or do sport. Percentages: more than half of the population, 40 to 49, 20 to 39, and then 0 to 19. And as we can see, Eastern European Union members, these are the member countries, very inactive. Also the southern countries, northern countries, much more active. The Balkan countries are not included. I'm not sure where you stand. Is it closer to the northern countries or southern countries? But it doesn't matter. We have tremendous work ahead of us, and good luck in doing that. Thank you very much.